Train. How many extra days in February in a leap year? One. What do bees collect from flowers? Pollen, nectar. What is the second month of the year? February. What do we call a dream that is very frightening or unpleasant? Nightmare. What is the hard object in the center of peaches, apples and pears? Core, stone. How do we describe something between continents? Intercontinental. Which button do we use to remove something from computer? Delete. Which one is past tense, has gone, went or going? Went. Would fresh milk last longer in a fridge or in a cool cupboard? A fridge. What are the two holes in your nose to breathe? Nostrils. What do we call a photo of a person's face taken from the side? Profile. What are the strings on shoes? Shoelace, shoelaces. What clothing do people wear, such as students or nurses, to show that they belong to the same organizations? Uniform. What do we call money borrowed from banks? Loan. What is the opposite of wet? Dry. What thing do postgraduate students have that undergraduate students don't? Master degree. What is a thermometer used to measure? Temperature. What kind of food that vegetarians do not eat? Meat. If there are 8 black balls and 1 white ball, and I randomly pick one, which color is mostly likely to be picked? Black. We call a person used to using the right hand a right-hander, and what do we call a person if the left hand? Left-hander. Historians use evidence to draw conclusions about the past. Would a contemporary artist's painting of an ancient battle be an original source or secondary source? Secondary source. What is the study of religion called? Theology. What instrument would scientists use to examine very small life forms? Microscope. In mathematics and arithmetic, there are addition, multiplication, division. What's the other one? Subtraction. What do we call famous people? Celebrity. What is the heading at the top of an article or page in a newspaper or magazine? Headline. How many hemispheres does the equator divide Earth into? Two. What kind of liquid do mammals feed their babies? Milk. What is the opposite of even numbers? Odd numbers. If you have a toothache, who will you go to? Dentist. Which day is between Tuesday and Thursday? Wednesday. What do you call a flight that you buy for going and return? Round trip. Who is the Swiss greatest scientist in physics? Einstein. How many sides does an octagon have? 8. Where would you go to see an exhibition of sculptures? Art gallery, museum. What will you hear after a flash of lightning? Thunder. How many quarters are there in a calendar year? 4. What is the line where the sky meets the land? Horizon, skyline. What do you call a person who is guilty in terms of law? Convict, criminal, offender. What do we call a long, metal stick a player used to hit the ball in golf? Club. In what room do scientists usually do experiments? Laboratory. What do you call a picture or design permanently on your skin made with a needle and ink? Tattoo. Where do people go for watching sports or games? Stadium. What are the people who study history and historical evidence? Historian. What is the highest position in the embassy? Ambassador. What we call it when the moon completely blocks out the light from the sun. A solar eclipse, an eclipse. In the kitchen, what do you call the sturdy base you cut raw materials on? Cutting board, chopping block/butcher block. What material is the tire made of? Rubber. What do we call the piece of paper that proves you have bought an item? A receipt. What is the opposite of positive? Negative. How do you call the place where someone is in the jail? Prison. What is the opposite of majority? Minority. What is the opposite word of stale? Fresh. What do we call the northernmost and southernmost parts of the earth? Poles. What is the act of students to be present at school? Attendance. Who is the physician who performs operations? Surgeon. How do you call the pointing device that is connected to the computer? Mouse. Which hospital department would you go for an X-ray, radiology, or cardiology? Radiology. What do we call the treatment in which people use needles to ease others' pain? Acupuncture.
What do you call the persons who study religions? Theologians, theologists. If telescopes are used to locate distant objects, what instrument is employed to magnify minuscule objects? Microscope, microscopes. What is the process where the color becomes lighter and lighter when exposed to sunlight for a long time? Fade. What is the antonym of vertical? Horizontal. What do we call counting people who are living in a state or country? Census. What is the subject of study at a culinary institute? Cooking. What do you call a place where tennis is played? Tennis court. What kind of shoes do you wear to keep it comfortable when hiking? Hiking boots, hiking shoes. What is a line between countries? Boundary, border, frontier. In medical terms, are antibodies harmful or beneficial for patients? Beneficial. What do we call the action of a ball that immediately moves upwards from the ground after hitting it? Bounce, bouncing. Which sweet food is produced by bees? Honey. What is a word or expression that has the same or nearly the same meaning as another in the same language? Synonym. What is the boat that carries people from one side of a river to the other? Ferry. What special document do most people traveling between one country and another need to carry? A passport. Which one is quicker? Running, jogging or walking? Running. What kind of dictionary provides synonyms, antonyms and related words? Thesaurus. What do you throw underwater to keep ships staying on rivers or oceans without drifting away? Anchor. How many sides are there in a pentagon? 5. Which kind of book can we find Africa maps? Atlas. How do you describe a line that segments a circle? Chord. What sense do we use our noses for? Smell, olfactory sense. Some calendars begin a week on Sunday. What is the other day which commonly starts a week? Monday. Who would you consult to treat a fear of crowded places, a philosopher or a psychologist? Psychologist. If something such as fabric or medicine is artificially made, not natural, what do we say it is? Synthetic, artificial. When trains or cars need to go through a mountain, where do they enter the mountain? Tunnel. Which symbol is used to complete a sentence? Full stop, period. What is the opposite to predecessor? Successor. What subject involves a study of the periodic table? Chemistry. What animal is a shepherd responsible for? Sheep, goat. What is the source of solar energy? Sun. Where is basketball played? Basketball court. What do we call the organs in our chest that we use to breathe? Lungs, lung. What is this instrument? Telescope. Which part of your leg can make it possible to bend? Knee. What do you call a person from Netherlands? Dutch. Which one is more widespread, Korean, Thai or Hindi? Hindi. If you want to find the map of US, what type of book should you use? Atlas. If your knees are located in the center of your legs, which center are your elbows located in? Arms. What is the force that draws objects toward a planet's center? Gravity, gravitation. How would you describe an animal that no longer exists on the Earth? Extinct. We call numbers like 1, 3, 5 odd numbers, then what do we call numbers like 2, 4, 6? Even numbers. Before airplanes were invented, how did people travel from America to Europe? By ship. What is the hardest/toughest part of your hand? Nails. What gas will be generated from the boiling water? Water vapor, steam. If knees are located in your legs, where are elbows located? Arms. Which part of the hand do we use to pick up objects? Finger, fingers. What do you use to test the body temperature? Thermometer. What is the word for a period of 100 years? Century. When you get lost in city, what item do you need to buy to find out where you are and where you go? Map. If someone tells something funny to you, what is your reaction? Laugh, laughing. If an event happens annually, how often does it happen? Once a year. How do we call the car that uses two types of fuels? Hybrid. How many sides does a hexagon have? Six. If one's response is simultaneous, quick or slow? Quick. What is the job of someone that looks after your teeth and gums? Dentist, surgeon dentist. What device is used to measure the height of mountains? Altimeter. What do you call the document that tells your qualification and work experience? CV, curriculum vitae, resume. What do we call people who help others get insurance? Insurance agents, insurance brokers.
What is the couple's formal relationship called? Marriage. If you were celebrating a biannual activity, how many years ago did you celebrate it last time? Half a year? Where on campus are the periodical collections located? Library. What do we call the selling and transporting of goods to another country? Export, exportation. What do you call the son of your sister or brother? Nephew. What is the magazine that is dedicated to academic news? Journal, academic journal. What is the study of stars and planets called? Astronomy, uranology, cosmology. What do you call the people who work on boats? Sailors. What will ice become when it melts? Water. What is the name of ceremony in which two people get married? Wedding. What do you call students in universities who have not yet graduated? Undergraduates. What is the name of the liquid in the pen? Ink. What device do you type on when you use a computer? Keyboard. What is the altitude related to, weight or height? Height. Which one in the four seasons has the lowest temperature? Winter. Which continent do China, India, Korea and Japan locate? Asia. What do you call someone who buys something? consumer, customer, shopper, buyer. A dozen is a grouping of which number? 12. Who sits in the cockpit of an airplane? Pilot. What do you call a specialist who repairs leaking water pipes? Plumber. What is the description of events that is spoken with background music during a film or a play? Narration. What is the place you share bedroom with your classmates? Dormitory. Apart from coffee and hot chocolate, what beverages also contain caffeine? Tea, Coke, cocoa. What is the red liquid that flows through a body? Blood. Which organ is the blood pumped from? Heart. What is the section in the library where books can be read but cannot be borrowed? Reserve collection. What is the list that shows the names of actors and actresses in a movie? Cast. What do we call a period of 1,000 years? Millennium. What is the act of jumping into the water? Diving. Which sense is related to your ears? Hearing. How do you call the movements that the babies move by using hands and legs? Crawling. What is the name of the student who has not completed his course? Undergraduate student. Where are goods stored before sale? Warehouse, inventory, stock. What do we call a person's move to a more important job or rank in a company? Promotion. What is the political system in which a country is ruled by a king or a queen? Monarchy. How do you describe the type of magazine that is published 4 times a year? Quarterly. What is H2O in chemical substances? Water. What do you call the strap that circles a person in a car or an airplane? Seatbelt. What do we call people going to space? Astronauts. What do we call the things of 88 keys covered by color white and black? Pianos. Which kind of mountain can erupt? Volcano, volcanoes. How many times does a biannual magazine published in 1 year? 2, twice. What are the external organs used for hearing? Ears. What device do you use to measure your weight? Scale, weighing machine. What is the force happened between the relative motions when objects are rubbed against each other? Friction. What key mineral makes seawater different from fresh water? Salt. Whose job is making and repairing wooden objects and structures? Carpenter. How do you call the siblings born by your mother at the same time? Twins. What do we call a period of 100 years? Century. What movement can babies do before they can sit and walk? Crawl, crawling. How many wheels does the tricycle have? 3. What do we call the Times New Roman in word? Typeface, font. What do we call a cat's baby? Kitten. What is the musical instrument which has both pedals and strings? Harp, piano. What material is used for most of vehicles and craft? Metal, plastic, glass. What rises from the east in the morning and sets to the west in the evening every day? Sun. What is the opposite of a synonym? Antonym. What material are windows made of? Glass. How do you call a doctor who treats sick animals? Vet, veterinarian. What do you need to submit for completing a degree in the university? Dissertation, thesis.
How many days are there in a fortnight? 14. If a figure is hexagonal, how many sides does it have? 6. How do we call that animals and plants preserved in the rocks? Fossil. What do we call the animals with white ivory and long trunk? Elephant, elephants. Which color do we make by blending black and white? Gray. In statistics, what is a circle divided into many parts called? Pie chart. What is the frozen type of water called? Ice. When a person's blood alcohol level is higher than the standard range, what activity can't the person do? Driving. What is the name of the instrument used to measure variations in temperature? Thermometer. What do we call a car that needs to be charged? Electric car. What do we call the thread in the center of the candle? Wick. What do pedestrians move by? Foot, feet. What do we call a person or an independent organization that inspects a company? Auditor. What is the long speech that is spoken by only one actor in a film or play? Monologue. Which literacy genre describes all details of a famous person's life? Biography. What is the subject studying the nature of society? Sociology. What do you call a person who studies the weather? Meteorologist. Where can we find the page numbers of books? Footer. What category do the bee, the butterfly, and the mosquito fall into? Insect. Despite all the advances in equality between the sexes, would more men or women play professional football? More men. What is the verb describing the process that water becomes ice? Freeze. To which of our scents do all of the following words relate? Opaque, vivid, brilliant, shiny? Vision. How many years does a millennium have? $1,000. What are the people who study ancient bones or plants in rocks? Paleontologists, paleontologist. How do you call a student that has finished his first year? Sophomore. In a recession, does economic activity increase or slow down? Slow down. What do you call a statue or a building that is dedicated in memory of someone? Monument. What kind of book is written by a person about their own life? Autobiography. What document does a student get when graduating from the university? Graduation certificate. What is the replacement of a typewriter? Keyboard. What does the sun do during dawn? Sunrise. Where can people go to borrow books? Library, bibliotheca. Oral English is different from academic English. Which is the best term to describe academic English, tolerant or rigorous? Rigorous. What does a sundial measure? Time. What will students receive at the end of the term? Transcript. What do we call a book that contains lists of words with their meanings? Dictionary. What is the opposite of artificial? Natural. How many days are in a leap year? (366). Where would you expect to find equipment like microscopes, a Bunsen burner, beaker and Petri dish? Laboratory. What do you call a person who lives next to your house? Neighbor. How many years are there in a decade? "10 years." In which direction does the sun come up? East. What do you call a person who is suspected by the police? Suspect. What do we call a festival which is held every 4 years gathering people together as a sporting event? The Olympic Games. What do you call the alphabetical list at the end of a textbook that tells you where to find specific information? Index, reference. What do birds use to fly? Wings. What is the legal document protecting someone's intellectual property? Patent. What do we call a sudden shake of the Earth's surface? Earthquake. How many days are in a week? 7 days. What is the habitat of camels? Desert. What do we call the ship that runs underwater? Submarine. Who are the drivers of the journals? Editors. What do we call an experienced person who advises and helps less experienced people? Mentor. What kind of drugs are used for killing bacteria? Antibiotics. The instructions that tell you how to cook food. Recipe, recipes. What is the opposite direction of sunrise? West. What do we call the study of living things? Biology. What do people hold overhead when it is raining? Umbrella. What do we call the liquid which is in a car? Gasoline, petrol, gas. What century are we now in? 21st.
How many years are there in a bicentennial? 200. What day is the first day of a week which starts with T? Tuesday. What do we use to launch a space shuttle? Rocket booster. What do we call the pen that receives its ink from its reservoir? Fountain pen. What will snow become after its melt? Water. If a building is 1,000 meters high, from where do we measure the height? Sea level. Which part at the end of book can be used for further reading? An index or a bibliography? A bibliography. What are buses, trains, and cars used for? Travel, transport, transportation. Which place has higher humidity, a desert or a rainforest? Rainforest. What do we call a child who will soon be a teenager? Preteen, tween. How often is a centennial celebrated? "100 years." What is the thing that has iron inside and can attract iron? Magnet. What do you call the buildings of a university or college and the land around them? Campus. Where can you find the index in the book? At the end of the book. What do you call the people who visit sightseeing locations? Tourists. What is 1/2 of 100%? %50. How many years are there in a century? "100. If someone lives in an urban area, where do they live? City, town. In the word postgraduate, what does the post mean? After. What do you call the very long essay that students have to write for a doctoral degree? Thesis, dissertation, discourse, paper. Which is easier to be recycled, plastic or paper? Paper. What do you call the complete control of trade in particular goods or the supply of a particular service? Monopoly. What is the economic sector that deals with farming? Agriculture. What do we call the behavior that people cannot sleep? Insomnia. What type of shape has 4 right corners, 4 lines that are equal in length? Square. Inhalation of which tobacco substance or activity is dangerous? Nicotine. What is the term used for the life history of a person written by himself? Autobiography, memoir. What is the term used to describe a period of 7 days? Week. What is the ceremony called for marriage? Wedding. What does subterranean mean? Underground.
What is the joint between your shoulder and your forearm? Elbow. What is the opposite of convex? Concave. What do we call one of 4 equal parts of something? Quarter. Would a person suffering problems with their vision consult a biologist or an optometrist? An optometrist. Optometrist. What does a king or queen wear on their head at official ceremonies? Crown, diadem. What is the lowland between 2 hills or mountains? Valley, canyon. What does human and animal skeleton consist of? Bone, bones. What is the device that shows the time of the day according to the shadow of sunlight? Sundial. In addition to the A, E, I, O, what is the other vowel? U. What is the horizontal line that separates the globe into 2 halves? Equator. What do we call the subject that studies weather and temperature? Meteorology, climatology. What is the opposite of the word public? Private. In the library, which books we are not allowed to bring them out with ourselves? Closed reserve book, closed reserve books. Where do people go to watch plays? Theatre, theatre. What do you call a word formed from the first letters of other words? Acronym. What do we call comments in a movie given by a person unseen on the screen? Voiceover. How do you call the money that you pay in advance for receiving newspapers or journals? Subscription. How do we call a person who writes his own story? Autobiographer. What do you call the government where the power is concentrated in the hands of one person? Autocracy. If a couple have a pair of children, how many children do they have? 2. Which day of the week starts with Thursday? What is the meeting point of sea and sky called? The horizon. Which one is more shining, gold or silver? Gold. Which part of our bodies do we use nasal spray in? Nose, nostril. How do you call someone with no hair? Bald. What is the opposite of division in mathematics? Multiplication. What do we call three children born at the same time to the same mother? Triplets. What is the yellow stuff that can be found on beaches or deserts? Sand. What is the opposite of north? South. What do we call a period of 10 years? Decade.
Which of the following is not a means of transportation: biplane, by public transportation, or car model? Car model. What kind of equipment is used to protect motorbike riders' brains from injury? Helmet. What do we call the legal document that states how people's property should be allocated after their deaths? Testament, will. What do we call a doctor who can sell prescribed medicines? Pharmacist, chemist. If you want to read tragedies or comedies, what kind of book do you read? Fiction books, novels. What is the occupation that transfers one language to another language? Translator. What is the thing you touch when you play the guitar? Strings, string. What do we call the first paragraph of a report? Introduction. What do we call the extra performance that actors give? Encore. What do humans and animals need to inhale for survival? Air, oxygen. What is the feature that guitars and violins have in common? String, strings. What's the color of the medal that a champion gets? Golden. What is the joint called where your hand is connected to your arm? Wrist, wrists. What natural resource is used by a carpenter? Wood, timber. How do you describe the money that citizens must contribute to the government for public use? Tax, taxes.